Hello, everyone, and welcome back to your boy, The Sean Davey Way Show. Please tap that like and subscribe on the way in. Hit that bell if you would like to be notified of all of our future content. Today, I bring you Surviving on Keefe D and Diddy, whom we're going to merge into in the middle of this video. But we're going to start off with Dwayne Davis, aka Keefe D, the man that was just arrested in connection to Tupac Shakur's unalivement years ago. Who is Dwayne Keefe D Davis? Dwayne Keefe Davis, now 60 years old, was born in Compton, California, known to many in the entertainment world as Keefe D. He is a self-professed member of the California-based gang, the Southside Compton Crips. Davis rose to fame as one of the only living witnesses to Shakur's slaying after being featured in television specials on networks including A&E, USA Network, and Fox. In 2018, in an interview for BET, he admitted he was inside the Cadillac when Shakur was shot. He implicated his nephew, the late Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, saying he was the only one of the two people in the back seat where the shots were fired. On Friday, Johansson said that prior to leaving the MGM Grand, Shakur and Knight spotted their rival Anderson inside the building near the elevators and began to kick and punch him. Security broke up the fight, Johansson said, and the pair left the MGM headed toward the post-fight party. At the same time, Johansson said Davis learned what happened inside the MGM and began to devise a plan to obtain a firearm and retaliate against Suge Knight and Mr. Shakur for what occurred. Also, from Compton, Anderson died in May 1998. Police said he was also a Southside Compton Crip gang member. Side note, so if you don't know who Keefe D is, this is a brief description of him. Keefe D, known to the entertainment world at the time of the 90s, was being a part of a gang called the Crips, the Southside Crips to be exact. His nephew, who was a part of the Southside Crips as well, his name was Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, was inside the MGM at the time alone without his uncle, and Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight had already had a prior issue with Orlando. They got into a scuffle inside of the MGM. Security broke it up. And when Davis found out what happened inside of the MGM, he began to devise a plan to get back to retaliate against Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight for what they did to his nephew, Orlando. And that is exactly what happened. Davis got a weapon and gave that weapon to his nephew so that his nephew could get his revenge on Tupac after the MGM exit when everyone was on their way to the party. So he was in the car with his nephew, but not only was he in the car, he set this whole thing up. He got his nephew the weapon. He made sure that they followed the vehicle, all of that. So while he's online doing interviews and whatnot about being a witness to it, he actually planned it. The police just recently found out said information after raids and whatnot have occurred so that they could gain a strong case against Dwayne. So let's get into Dwayne's charges. Davis is charged with 1 count of murder with a weapon and with the intent to promote, further, or assist a criminal gang. Clark County District Attorney Stephen B. Wolfson told reporters during a Friday press conference, Davis is slated to appear in court over the next few days on an murder charge after being indicted by a grand jury. The long-awaited break in the case came 2 months after authorities in Nevada obtained a search warrant and raided a home tied to Davis on July 18, 2023. The home belonged to Davis's wife. The AP reported and Las Vegas police collected the following items: a cell phone, laptops, a hard drive, photographs, a magazine featuring Shakur, 40 caliber bullets, and a copy of Davis's 2019 biography, Compton Street Legend. Davis was the former shot caller for the Southside Compton Crips and a kingpin of a Compton-based multi-million-dollar drug operation. According to a summary of his memoir listed on Amazon, quote, The infamous Suge Knight, former Death Row Records CEO, and I are only living witnesses to the deadly confrontation on the Las Vegas Strip between the occupants of our two vehicles. Davis wrote in the summary, calling the incident a violent confrontation that led to the passing of two hip-hop's biggest stars, Tupac Shakur and Christopher Notorious B.I.G. Wallace, and changed hip-hop history forever. Side note, I'm definitely side-eyeing everything Davis is saying. Let's start here. He's stating that he and Suge Knight were only occupants in vehicles during a confrontation, which is confusing because Suge Knight and Tupac both jumped Orlando inside of the MGM. Orlando is Davis's nephew. Why would you plan to make sure that Tupac pays for what he just did to your nephew when Suge Knight was involved too? Why not take his life as well? I believe that, still to this day, in my opinion, that Suge Knight had everything to do with Tupac losing his life. And for him not to be a suspect, he would have to get popped as well. Nothing life-threatening, but he would have to get popped as well. Tupac was an over KILL. He was pow-powed so many times, they wanted to make sure that he did not live. They pulled up to the side that Tupac was on to make sure that they ended his life. I am not buying anything he's saying with this situation because, again, why are you basically befriending Suge Knight and saying like, hey, we were only witnesses? What? Why would you want to befriend someone that just did what he did to your nephew? If you were angry at Tupac, you should have been just as angry as Suge Knight. And Suge Knight technically should have lost his life too for just doing what Tupac did. It seems targeted. It seems as if that was deliberate. Everybody knows that Suge Knight has had relationships with the Crips for decades. So that is no surprise that everything that Suge Knight went to jail for, embezzling, drug activity, among other things, hurting people, taking people's lives. This person, Davis, does the same thing. And they're both from the same area, hanging around the same people. Snoop was a Crip and, and all of this stuff. So it does not make any sense that he's trying to make it seem as if he and Suge Knight had nothing to do with what was going on. You had everything to do with what was going on. And he also lists that Notorious B.I.G. lost his life for basically the same thing. No, it's not the same thing at all. Notorious B.I.G. was being threatened for quite some time before he lost his life. But it's no coincidence that Tupac and B.I.G. passed away the same way. There is no coincidence about that. Tupac lost his life in Las Vegas, where he was not from, and Biggie lost his life in California, where he was not from. This is no coincidence. This was deliberate. Both hip-hop legends were targeted. It's easy to figure out why B.I.G. and Tupac lost their lives and why they were targeted. Both men were leaving their labels. Tupac was leaving Death Row. Suge Knight would not let him leave and gave him the opportunity to do a sister company called Death Row South. So Pac would have his own label underneath Death Row, but Pac did not want that. He wanted to leave Death Row entirely. Same thing with the Notorious B.I.G. He was leaving Bad Boy Records. He was finding new labels, talking to new management, and Diddy didn't want that. Diddy was not letting B.I.G. out of that deal. In my honest opinion, the only way for both men, Diddy and Suge Knight, to keep their artists, Tupac and Biggie, and their catalogs was to end them. It was going to be hard for Tupac to get out of his contract, and it was going to be hard for B.I.G. to get out of his contract as well, but they would have made it out. They would have found a way to get out. There's always loopholes in contracts and whatnot. Sometimes you got to pay out a lot to get your name and to get your catalog, and I think both men would have sacrificed that because they were literal legends. They would have made enough money to be able to buy their way out of those horrible contracts. And the only way to keep them is by ending them, in my opinion. In my opinion as well, I believe the MGM Grand incident to where Tupac Shakur, Suge Knight, and Orlando got into the physical altercation was just a distraction. I think they needed a reason publicly to state why they were going to do what they were going to do to Tupac without it getting back on to Suge Knight, so that the energy or the blame didn't fall onto him. If Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight are together hanging out and then an incident occurs to where they're protecting each other and then they leave and something happens to Tupac, when it comes to Suge Knight, nothing to see here. You know, I don't have anything to do with this. I was just protecting him. Why would I protect him and then take his life right after? Simply because I believe he had been trying to take Tupac's life. This was not the first time Tupac had been injured and been pow-powed. It did not work the first time. They tried to do it in New York so that they could blame it on the Notorious B.I.G. and his squad. And it had nothing to do with the Notorious B.I.G. He and Tupac were great friends. The industry was trying to rip them apart. But honestly, they were cool with one another. They respected each other. They respected each other's art. And I believe Suge Knight caused the beef between Bad Boy and Death Row on purpose. I believe that Diddy and Suge Knight have been in cahoots, you know, this whole time. With Tupac being the head artist at Death Row Records and Biggie being the head artist at Bad Boy Records, both of them have the power of mutiny. And mutiny is overthrowing the captain. So Biggie is the captain of the ship technically, and so is Pac, with them being the lead artist. If Biggie walks away, a lot of other people on Bad Boy are going to walk away too, because a lot of them feel how Biggie felt. And it's the same thing with Tupac. Tupac wanted to leave and go to Death Row South. A lot of the artists that were on Death Row wanted to sign with Pac and leave with him. They just wanted to get as far away from Suge Knight as possible. And it was the same thing with Biggie, with the Junior Mafia crew and Lil' Kim and all of them. They were going to follow Biggie to the end of the world. So this would not be a good thing for the roster at Bad Boy or for the roster of artists at Death Row Records. And the record label will not be fond of a bunch of artists jumping ship. So it is Suge Knight's responsibility to keep all the artists in check, and it's also Diddy's responsibility to keep his roster of artists in check too. Anything they do, the record label will blame on the owners of the label, which would be, again, Diddy and Suge Knight. So what better way to make it so that you don't have mutiny by getting rid of the captains, if you will, or the leaders in the organized rebellion against the label holders. It gives Suge Knight and Diddy full motive, a strong motive to end these men's lives, to get rid of them, making it possible for mutiny. Let's move into Diddy and his connection to Keefe D. I speak of Diddy often, and you know me, I believe in coming with a receipt. I don't like just stating things about someone because I'm not fond of them. But Diddy is actually involved in this situation because Keefe D has stated in the past, before getting caught, that Puffy offered him a significant amount of money to end Tupac's life. Let's get into that. Keefe D also spoke about rapper Diddy's role in Pac's passing. He said Diddy offered him $1 million to KILL Shakur. Based on 3 years of working on the case, Detective Greg Carding came to the conclusion that Sean Puff Daddy Combs put a $1 million hit on both Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight following the highly publicized rap beef involving himself and Biggie. Now, social media users are wondering if Diddy will be arrested. We don't have adequate information if the police chasing more suspects in the 27-year-old case. Keefe D will appear for trial in the coming days. Side note, so again, Keefe D did speak on this in the past, and it is noted, even with Detective Greg Carding, that Puff Daddy did put a $1 million hit out on Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight. And I'm just going to say what I believe, allegedly. Let's re-go over the night that Tupac passed away. We went over earlier how Keefe D and his nephew Orlando were at the MGM event where Pac and Suge Knight were as well. Here is what I think went down. I think, in my opinion, allegedly, that Keefe D did take Diddy up on his offer to end both people's lives. Again, if you pay attention, Diddy allegedly offered him $1 million to end both of the men's lives. Both of the men were pop out that night, but Suge survived and Tupac didn't. Okay, now that could have been on purpose or it could have been accidental, but it does seem the people that Puffy wanted to pass away, it happened type of situation. Let's keep going. The night, let's get into it. I think Keefe D was outside because he was the driver and also holding the weapon, or with the driver and holding the weapon. Orlando was inside because Orlando was the one that was always going to take Pac's life because he disliked Pac more than any of the people that were there to end Pac's life, Keefe D being one of them. I think that Pac spotted Orlando, and I think that's when he and Suge Knight fought Orlando because they had already had a prior problem with him. So Orlando was not supposed to be seen. Orlando was just supposed to keep tabs, keep an eye on them so that they could follow them when they left. He was supposed to be the one to give the signal that Pac and Shakur were leaving, okay? And then they were all going to leave after and take Pac and Suge Knight's life. The problem came in to where this became so public is that Pac recognized Orlando. That wasn't supposed to happen. If you think about when Biggie passed away, there was no altercation or anything like that before, but he passed away just like Pac at a red light, pretty much, in a vehicle and whatnot. So the reason why Pac's story has a little bit more of a story to it is because the person that came to end his life, I don't know, maybe it was his intuition, or something in that realm, but something told him danger when he saw Orlando. And I believe that's why he attacked him immediately. For Keefe D to say that after he found out what happened to Orlando, that's when no, I don't believe that's true at all. Orlando, Pac, and Suge Knight, after the fight, they all left at the same time. So I believe it was always planned for them to end Pac's life. Pac was never supposed to live. And Keefe D trying to fix the story up to make it look like, oh, it was an altercation. And then after the altercation, revenge was sought. No, it was a hit. And you were the ringleader. Long story short, allegedly, Diddy reached out to Keefe D, who was a big shot in the Crips, and requested that he end the life of Tupac and Suge Knight, and that he would pay him $1 million to make sure that it was done. Of course, Keefe D wasn't going to want blood on his hands and do it himself, but it does not mean that he was not going to have it done. When you put a hit out on someone, all that matters is that their life is taken. It doesn't matter who does it, as long as it's done. Keefe D allegedly agreed to the hit and had his nephew, who had a prior issue, take Pac's life. Now, again, even if there wasn't a small altercation in the MGM event between Pac and Orlando, they had one prior. So again, it gave him motive to want to end Pac's life. So either way, he had a way so that it didn't fall back onto him, and he had a way that it didn't fall back onto Diddy. I believe that's another reason why this case took so long, is because of the connections. Finding why a person would want to do this, the motive they would have behind it, and who actually put in the workings or the orders for these things to take place. Putting all of that together, linking someone from New York to someone in Vegas and people in California, it is a lot. So it takes a long time, jurisdictions and all of that, to be able to find out the information you need to charge the people with what you need to charge them with. But Diddy's name will come up a lot throughout this, and we are definitely going to cover it. As of now, there is a high probability that Diddy may be going to jail. Again, Keefe D is about to go to trial with this situation, so he can give up names, and I believe if he does, the number one name on the tip of his tongue who should be the most afraid right now is Diddy. I love you all. Until the next video. Bye.